What's going on, you loyal listeners? Thank you for tuning in to the L Squared Podcast. I'm your host here, Luke Larson, and joining me today, as per the usual, the man who will be assisting me in leisurely launching you into levity, Old Legs.
Yeah! We're back.
We're back. We got out of the crock cellar.
Yes, out of the crock cellar. I just went into my she shed and I pulled out the flamethrower and I am ready to rock. I got takes on deck.
You know what's in that flamethrower? Hot takes. That's all that spits out.
Hot takes, man. And what are those hot takes directed at today? Huh?
Well, directed at one of our most anticipated movies of the year, by one of our favorite directors, for sure, one of my favorite directors of all time, Quentin Tarantino's new Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So this came out this last weekend, and like we do, spoilers, it's going to happen. We're going to get into it. But this was one where this is his 9th film, and he said that he's only going to do 10 films.
9 of 10.
So we got one more after this. And then he's calling it a career. He says it's going to make a good box set, whatever that means. And he'll just be enjoying the feet of many different women, in his mansion for the rest of his life once he retires. That's all he wants to do. So going into this movie, I think it's probably come up a couple times on the pod, but just my thoughts going into it, I didn't want to put my expectations too high, and I'm glad I didn't. I think I came into this at the exact right level. I don't want to give myself too much credit, but hey, I did it. Good job, Luke. But
that's also a great metric that people at home who are listening can also hear you and be like, oh yes, yeah, they can see that for sure. That's something that's very relatable.
Thank you.
An abstract feeling that you had, and you can just kind of go ahead and be like, I definitely that feeling I had. I nailed
I was
it.
Right. Don't you guys worry.
All right, I guess we're just taking your word here.
I know everyone was on the edge of their seat, and they couldn't wait. Like, all these weeks, they were like, God, but I don't know, was it right? Was the feeling? It was. Rest assured, it was. So going into it, like I said on the pod before, I didn't want to get my expectations too high. I just thought, it's one of my favorite directors. He's not going to do a bunch of movies, so I felt privileged that I got to go to a movie theater to see one of his films that takes place in one of my favorite eras, the late 60s, with Leonardo DiCaprio, Brad Pitt, two of my favorite actors. And I was like, you know what? I don't care. And it's set in Hollywood. Like, I was like, I don't really care what it's about. I'm just going to go enjoy seeing a Quentin Tarantino movie set in that time period with actors that I love, and I'm just going to try and enjoy it. So that was kind of my thought process going into it. What were you thinking going into it? What did you want this movie to accomplish?
So, you're right. The whole Quentin Tarantino thing, he's obviously a huge influence on not only our generation as millennials, but I think the prior generation too.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm sure, just like seeing Reservoir Dogs or Pulp Fiction in the theaters probably really shapes that, like, previous generation. Like, not saying that, like, old people, but I don't know, like, people.
It was like, because when he hit the scene,
mid-30s, 40s now,
right?
Or like, because that was probably their films, and it was like, holy shit,
Because he at the time he was this young guy who was a huge movie nerd who worked at a movie rental store and movie theaters, and he just came out of nowhere with this banger, and I think you're right, that whole generation really just latched on to him.
Yeah. So obviously, my expectations are just high. It's a combination of the name plus everyone involved in the project is just kind of exciting. Obviously, having Leo, Brad Pitt up front, and then a bunch of strong supporting cast.
Yeah, very much
is
so.
just gonna. I think anyone probably directing this movie were probably excited just by the premise, the trailer. It's like, oh, like what is this type thing.
Yeah.
But with Tarantino comes a little bit more, and it's weird. I was trying to think about this and kind of just conceptualize this in my head. It feels like Hateful Eight, his previous film, came out like not that long ago.
Yeah, it does kind of feel like that, but it was already 4 years.
But it was already, yeah. So it was 2015.
Yeah,
and I was like, holy shit, has it already been that long?
You know what? That was a weird take that you had before seeing that movie. I don't know if you remember that, but I'm pretty sure that it was like it was like
what
that.
Did I say?
It was like that was coming out. Star Wars was coming out, and I think it was The Revenant in like January or February or something. And you said something like only one of those three can be good, right? And I was like, I have no idea what you're trying to say. But you were like, right? Like, they can't all be good. You're like, only one of those three. I was like, okay. I have no idea where you're pulling that from. But I mean...
Okay, so let's think about it.
Were you wrong?
Was I wrong?
Not... You weren't as far off as I thought. You're right. You weren't as far off as I thought you'd be at the time. But I, to this day, have no idea where that thought came from.
I love that. God, like
you've been old legs forever. I mean, guys, this has been happening forever.
I'm just waiting for the Jeffrey Epstein Black Book of takes to come out, where Luke just destroys my career with all these fucking takes that I've been spewing out with
mindlessly,
literally no thought or real conception behind them. I just put them out there, and that's that. But I don't know. I mean, so those three movies, we hadn't seen any of them yet. We were expecting three masterpieces, and did we get three masterpieces? I think there's one really, really good movie in there, and that's Force Awakens, right?
Yeah, Force Awakens was very strong.
Force Awakens, A+, banger.
Yeah.
Hateful Eight.
It was a flawed... There were a lot of, it was...
haven't seen it since.
Yeah, I think I saw it twice, once with you and then once one other time, and it just didn't quite do it for me. It just wasn't quite... And that was the one that had, it had all that build-up of... He had this Western that was going to be like a cabin fever whodunit, and then and then the script gets leaked, and he says, I'm not going to do it anymore. And we're like, oh, we're missing this masterpiece. And then they do this magical table read in Texas or something, and very hush-hush. And then after that table read, the excitement was so palpable that he was like, oh, maybe I'll turn it into a stage play. And then we hear, well, no, actually, he's rewriting it and is going to be a movie. It's just going to be different than the one that got leaked. And you're like, okay, well, at least we're getting it. And then all it was billed to me as was a whodunit, a Western whodunit. And I was like, I'm not really super thrilled about seeing another Western from Tarantino just because we just saw Django. And,
It's like a cold Western. It's
very cold, yeah.
It's the Pope, except he's young.
That's exactly right. And it just, the opening takes so long. I mean, it takes probably at least an hour and a half to get to the cabin. And it's, at the first time seeing it, I really appreciated it more. I was like, well, he's really taking his time, and it's an homage to the Westerns of old. And, but then on the rewatch, that ride is really hard to get through at the beginning. And I mean, there are definitely a lot of high points, but it just didn't quite do it for me. And like when they finally got to the whodunit stuff of who poisoned the coffee, and you're like, all right, yep, here we go. It was over just instantly. And there were like a lot of little things that stand out to me that could have made it so much better. Like one thing, like Sweet Dave, no one else sits in Sweet Dave's chair, right? Like when Samuel Jackson's revealing how he knew that these people were false, and no one sits in Sweet Dave's chair or whatever. And then he's like, Missy hated Mexicans, right? He says she hated Mexicans, but then in the flashback, when that Mexican showed up, she didn't care. She didn't even give him a look. She didn't even pause. And it was like, but didn't you say? So I was like, wait, was Samuel Jackson just making that up? Because it would have been a lot better if she would have like had some hesitation or didn't want to serve him. But it was like, okay, then why did he even say that?
So this is why I think you have a shot at the majors.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty positive I'm gonna be roughing it in single A ball for the majority of my career, because I don't remember any of that. I think you could very well be making up all of that.
Right.
And
you would just say, yeah, I agree.
I remember the
Dingus story,
the S and the D.
Yep.
With Sam Jackson, and then I remember Walton Goggins just
at the end
going for it.
Yep.
And
he really was.
And, that's about it.
Yeah, and Kurt Russell punching Jennifer Jason Leigh a lot, and it was really uncomfortable after a while. Like I don't want to get on my high horse, but it's like, man, I really
we're gonna have to go there eventually with like as we kind of tail it back here. But I do kind of want to touch on the last movie there, The Revenant, and this is all coming back because I actually had this sort of thought before you brought up that wild take of mine, and whether that take was good, bad, Nostradamus,
it was
judge.
But
I think I was
if anything, good or bad, it was 100% you. That's
100% on brand.
It was, yep. And that was pre-pod. That was before even the idea of a podcast. That's just the natural ether of old legs coming through.
This is where you're like writing these things down. Like, Jesus, this guy's insane. Like, we should put this into audio format.
Yeah, that maybe was one of the first things.
So, The Revenant, I think is interesting as it relates to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Okay.
We don't have to discuss the movie itself, but do we get Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? Specifically, do we get Leonardo DiCaprio playing a washed-up has-been if he doesn't win the Oscar for The Revenant? Because am I right? Is that the last film he was in? Right?
Yeah, I was talking about this with somebody. It was definitely the last major one for a while.
Let me see. Yeah, no, that was The Revenant. He hasn't been on screen since The Revenant.
Right, because he said he wanted to take some time off, and he was doing a bunch of... He did that National Geographic thing.
Yeah, but none of that shit counts. I don't care about that stuff. I'm just saying, do we have Leo? Does he say yes to this? Because this isn't like an Oscar part.
Right.
I don't think so. Right.
Right. No.
I haven't like really had the chance to like sit down and like really think or ingest any like reviews of this movie. But I don't see this as being like a very like Oscar-y type role.
And I have a good point for that I'm going to get into later, but I just want to bookmark it here so I don't forget. So go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, and I especially don't think that we maybe get this side of Leo, which I think is maybe my favorite type of Leonardo DiCaprio. Like
in The Revenant or in Once Upon a Time?
No, in Once Upon a Time.
Okay.
I love it when he's like going for it and he's just full on, just doing the whole thing, the whole fighting the bear and everything.
Yep.
And I guess he had to do that, and he probably deserved it. And I don't know if you just want to call it a lifetime award or whatever, but
yeah,
it is what it is. He won the Oscar.
Yep. It was a weak year that year.
Yeah, but I don't know. Like, what are your thoughts? I just think it's a really interesting choice to go from that and having one, and then I feel like he's freed up and he's able to play a character like this.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, I see where you're trying to go with it. That's a pretty small window you're trying to fit the ball into, which is why we love you. You know.
Only tight windows. No, Billy.
No.
Thrown into triple coverage is
way cooler. Remember that.
Remember that.
Yeah. It. You know. That's an impossible. As old legs like to do, that's an impossible question to answer. But my thoughts on it are, I think he would have, just because he was so magnetic and electric in Django as Mr. Candy. I mean, he just popped off the screen. And so I think that he was going to work with Tarantino again, no doubt in my mind, you know. And I think that he wanted to, and I think everybody wanted him to. So I think that The Revenant was probably like a good exhale, and then it freed him up to just be like, I'm just going to take some time off, and I'm just going to relax. And then he had the luxury of being like, oh, well, now I can just do... Shut up, D. My dog just barked for no reason. Now I can just do this movie with Tarantino that I really want to, and I don't have to worry about, like... Because maybe if he didn't win the Oscar, maybe he would have tried to pump out a few more films and just really try and work for it, you know? I don't know. And then maybe his schedule would have been too locked up where he couldn't have done Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, maybe, you know? But I think if you're asking if him getting the Oscar is what propelled him into this role, I'm not really sure. Because I think that it was inevitable that he was going to work with Tarantino again.
Right.
No matter what.
I know it's different since it's Tarantino. I just think it's ironic that he's playing like a has-been, like he's basically washed, right?
Yeah.
And like if you read too much into that, and obviously he doesn't think that, and I don't think Leo's washed either. I think he's great in this
far
film.
from it. Yeah.
But I'm sure
Brad Pitt's closer to that than Leo is. And Brad Pitt isn't. I'm not saying that's not a hot take, guys. I mean, it's just don't you do this. Don't turn the loyal listeners against me, old legs.
Okay. All right. Well,
he's
that's
not.
my job.
Hey,
but,
I'm not gonna let you cloud out this audio to rip it apart on my Jeffrey Epstein Black Book. Brad Pitt not washed up. Has never been washed up. I'm just saying. Whatever. I'm not going to justify myself in this hole. Don't quit letting me talk. That's it. I'm not going to let myself go anymore.
Okay. All right. Well, you're not very good at this hot take thing, man. I just roll with it.
I know. I'm not going to.
Sometimes I don't even know what I'm saying.
Can't do that to my boy Brad Pitt. I can't do it.
I thought slowly but surely.
You were gonna get me there.
I chip away at people.
Yep.
And I know I've been chipping away at you, and
it's
eventually
getting closer.
You're gonna succumb.
Eventually, I'm gonna open up that book.
Resistance is futile.
I'm gonna open up that leather-bound book, and I'm gonna read the Latin that's written in there. Eventually.
Yes.
But it's not. Yes. But that's not this day.
Yes. So. I just to kind of wrap up that whole thought there, I just kind of thought it was interesting, and I think maybe if he doesn't win for The Revenant, that we don't get this maybe more fun opportunity for Leo to really more or less kind of ham it up in a fun way that is suitable to his talents, because he can't really just do this for anyone.
Yeah, and I think
let's move on here. So,
okay.
What stood out to you? Give me just kind of your Give me your thoughts here. Run me through it.
Yeah. So
where do we start?
I saw this movie twice over the weekend, and like I said, I wasn't expecting much out of
anyone.
Of anyone. I was like,
I wasn't expecting much.
This movie's gonna suck. No, I wasn't, as far as like plot. I didn't want to think anything about plot. I didn't want to know where the story was gonna go. I just wanted to sit back and enjoy it, and I did. But I couldn't help, especially the first time, trying to kind of draw conclusions in my mind before they happened. So, I mean, there were definitely moments where it was like I was trying to draw the connection of like, okay, so Brad Pitt is Leonardo DiCaprio's stunt double, and he's his best friend, and he's kind of been carrying the load, like it says in the trailer, forever, and yeah, and he seems like they're good friends, seems like he likes him and likes to be around him, whatever. But then you kind of think, well, maybe there's going to be a breaking point, and there's going to be that scene where Brad Pitt snaps and says, I don't want to be your fucking sidekick anymore, I don't want to do, I'm always following your lead, and, I want to be my own man, and blah, blah, and they have this breakup, where he calls him washed up, and they have a breakup of friendship, and then, eventually miss each other and come back together. Like, that's just like a classic story beat that I was just kind of expecting to happen at some point. And it didn't. And then I also, like, the other thing you hear about this movie is that it had something to do with Sharon Tate was in it, and it's gonna have something to do with the Charles Manson murders. So, like, that's in the back of your head too. So then at the end of the movie, when some of that stuff starts happening, when the dirty hippies show up, you think, okay, here we go. We're gonna finally get this that we thought we were gonna get, like a reenactment of what happened, and then took a unique turn that I didn't see coming, especially the ending of it, when he gets invited to the house, and they're like, oh, we want you to meet our friends, and you're like, oh shit, they're gonna introduce him to Charles Manson, and they're gonna kill him or whatever. But it was just a happy ending, and so that was interesting. And then after the first time coming out of it, I just kind of had this realization where, well, a couple standouts. Cliff Booth, Brad Pitt's character, is one of the coolest movie characters ever. I mean, that dude is one of my favorites of all time, bar none. I mean, that dude is fucking awesome from minute one, and it doesn't slow down. And yes, when he was on the roof and he took his shirt off, I was like, fuck you, man. That's not fair. You're not allowed, like you said, hey, this just in. Brad Pitt's still hot. Don't worry, guys. He's still really hot.
Said that off air. Yeah.
Shut the fuck. Don't fucking tell them that. I'm gonna cut that. I'm gonna cut that part out. But he drives around. He gets to drive his boss's cool Cadillac. He's got a dope ass watch. I want those moccasins he has so bad. He's got that cool champion shirt, and just like that, that guy's just fucking cool, man. And just cool sunglasses.
And he killed his wife.
And he fucking killed his wife. That happened. And everyone knows about it. And it doesn't really affect him much. It doesn't really bother him. But she seemed like a bitch anyway. But, like, I just kind of, and then, Leo's character is this sort of washed up, maybe on the downward trajectory of his career, where he thinks that he's not respected anymore and he thinks he's a has-been. But in the end of the movie is that, no, people still respect him a lot and hold him in high regard, which is all he ever wanted. This was a really insecure actor. But after the coming out of it the first time, I just kind of had this realization of, I don't think anyone had like a character arc. I don't think any character really had much of a story arc. They all kind of ended in the same place they started. I mean, it didn't really change much. I mean, Leo started with being kind of insecure, feeling sort of washed up, and he felt that way the entire time until the end when they were like, neighbors were like, oh no, we think you're great, we love your stuff, come hang out. And it's like, okay, Cliff Booth was just cool, content, and he was just cool and content the entire time. Was just a good friend. Sharon Tate, just happy-go-lucky, free-spirited, just like kind of waspy and just sort of going through life. And she just kept that up the whole time. And I was like, coming out, I was like, I don't think anyone really had a character arc. There weren't really many lessons learned.
Except for, like the Manson family, because they started the film being alive, and then at the end they were dead.
But they didn't change. They were creepy, dirty hippies the whole time.
But they more or less like learned a lesson
by dying. Don't fuck with Cliff Booth.
Not to break and enter into people's houses.
Yeah.
Right?
Sort of, I guess.
Am I right there?
They weren't really main characters. But yeah, I mean, I guess so.
Because when you start the movie being alive, and then you can't go to bed dead.
Man, I hate you so much all the time.
I'm just like, I'm just pointing out facts.
You're just mad. See, this is what we talked about in the last episode. I try and make these good points. But I'm just in this cellar. I try and swim out and try and make these good points. And just he's out. He's all these fucking gators out there, just fucking trying to tear my good points down. Yeah, you're snapping at me.
It's interesting. And I like where you're coming at too, because you think that maybe there's supposed to be some great revelation when he comes back from doing spaghetti westerns,
right?
And he's gonna find a new hobby, or he's gonna become a family man with
his new Italian wife.
His new Italian wife, which I was like, I have these weird. I always think like meta films and what Tarantino is trying to do an homage to, and I kept thinking that the Italian wife was gonna get into a car and it was gonna just explode into a million pieces or something like that.
I definitely thought that was coming too. Yeah.
And because I was just this is like a weird ancillary character just kind of be here, and I'm wondering what. And
Al Pacino's in the movie,
sort of homage.
So you could almost pull him into it, like he goes to pick her up, and then that would be funny.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess you could say it doesn't. There's no one really turns a new leaf.
No.
But I kind of like that. I mean, we talked a lot about that in this podcast, where
incremental change.
Yeah, big life changes don't happen within the course of an hour and a half, or in this case, almost 3 hours.
Almost 3 hours. Yeah.
Yeah, you broke my heart.
Yeah.
It was already broken.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
I think so.
So, that being said, on the rewatch, I was able to enjoy it so much more. Even though I enjoyed it the first time, too, it was nice just to be able to sit back and know, I'm not because towards the end of the movie, the first time, I was definitely okay, when is this all going to come together? When are they going to do this? And the second time, I was like, well, I got to just sit back and watch it. And, there's this theory, there's this thought bubbling in the back of my head. And it's not fully formed, and I don't know if it will be for a long time. But there's just something that keeps pushing me towards, I think there has more to do with the title than we think. Once Upon a Time, ... in Hollywood. I think it's saying it has the title's telling me something. I don't know what it is, but it has something to do with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. This is a Hollywood story. It's almost like these sort of things that would seem incidental and not that important to a layman, a normal person, are extremely important to these characters, like forgetting your lines, or being in a scene, or being washed up, or whatever, and then in this movie, those are the big moments, And then the little like weird stuff that happens is like, oh, these intruders break in and oh yeah, well I guess we killed them. But the important part of that story is that I got invited up to this party at Roman Polanski's house. You know, that was really what Leo's takeaway from that whole thing is. So I think it has something to do with Hollywood and the Hollywood mindset. But it's not a fully formed thought yet. But that's definitely been ventriculating.
Are you
in the back of my head here?
Are you trying to say that you think that Sharon Tate is still alive?
She's still alive, and she's still wearing that Cowboys jersey. Number 17, Don Mattingly.
See, that's interesting because
that was the team that lost to the Packers.
You thinking that, and Tarantino potentially having some inside information. Could we potentially suss out some theories into whether
do we have him on the line?
Is that completely inappropriate to suggest that she wasn't brutally murdered?
Right. Like let's see what he thinks. Do you want to bust out your Tarantino impression for us?
I don't know. Do I have one?
Yeah, I don't know. We're gonna give it a shot.
I can't even do it. I'd have to watch the intro to Reservoir Dogs 5 times before I'd really be able to get into character.
That's all I got.
Yeah,
dick. About fucking dick. No, 'cause she hasn't been fucked like that. It's about fucking a big dick. That's as much as I care to do.
That's you're pulling your weight here. You're
can you just do it as Adam Driver? Just do Adam Driver talking about Sharon Tate.
Sharon Tate, she's a beautiful human. That was alive in the 60s, and her husband went on to make a very creepy film called Rosemary's Baby. And that's...
What was the film about?
The film was about the Antichrist.
That's good. That should be its own show.
I forgot. I keep forgetting our bits.
Yeah,
I gotta work on the Adam Driver reviews game.
Yeah, just remember your touchstone. Your touchstone is, what does it smell like? That's your touchstone. That's how you can get back into it.
I wanted to ask her, does she eat for fuel or fun?
Man, we got a winner on our hands. I don't know. I remember you asking me. This is for the true loyal listeners. If you go all the way back to our recommendations episode, I think
way back.
I think it was
farther back. You're into territory that I don't remember.
Right. This is back in the weeds. This is back when we were in the garage in the old theater seats.
Yes.
But I think it was on I think it was just a show, we just called it Recommendations. And
great title.
No. Wait. It might have been even before that. It might have been on our deep dive when we did that part 1 and part 2. And we brought up something at the end just saying well, what are your thoughts on this? You asked me what I thought about Nicole Brown and how she's thought of in popular culture or whatever. And if that was fair and if we weren't giving enough respect to her as a person, and not her as just the, O.J. Simpson's wife that he killed.
Sure.
You remember that?
Yeah.
So that thought came to mind watching this with Sharon Tate, because I keep going back and forth on it, because Sharon Tate was obviously a real person. She was an actress, and she was obviously killed. And this movie was released on the anniversary of her death, right?
Pretty close.
Yeah. So I don't know. And then watching the movie, I mean, they didn't glorify, they didn't like reenact. She, like we said, she made it out alive. But watching the movie, I can't help but think, why is she in this movie? I mean, it didn't really have much to do. She could have been a side character just like Roman Polanski was, but she was given more screen time, and you have Margot Robbie, you know. I mean I get it, but just as far as the and there wasn't really a whole lot of plot, I guess, to speak of, but it was like, I don't know, it was like she wasn't really needed in the grand scheme of things. So why was she in this movie other than to see her dirty fucking feet on top of that chair in the theater? Man, we get it, Tarantino. There's so much feet.
Whose were worse, hers or Margaret Qualley's?
On the dash? Yeah, when she put him on the dash, it was like, ugh.
Those yellow corn soles.
Yeah.
Oof.
But hers were dirty in the theater, though. I mean, she had like, you know, she had muck on them. She had some dirt on there, which was kind of gross too. But I guess it was dark in there. On the windshield, it was like bam, just right in your face, and ugh. But I don't know, what do you think about that? Because I mean, it's gotten, people are talking about it as a controversial topic, and I kind of go back and forth on it. I think it's just one of those things that the internet just decides to get mad about sometimes. But I don't know, since you had brought up the Nicole Brown thing from years ago, what is that comparable to this situation?
Again, I'm glad that you have
I just
all
have
of these written down in a notebook, and you can
I have a Rolodex of all your takes.
You can quickly reference them. You're like Robert Mueller up testifying with your, you know, you're referencing the page and paragraph number of each one of these takes. I'm fucking impressed, and I'm proud.
Thank you. Wait, let's see it. What does the audience think? Oh, they love it. Oh,
I'm really truly proud because I can say things, and it doesn't matter how ridiculous they are. Luke, against his will remember it
forever. It will.
Forever.
It will get itself launched in my head.
He can't. Yeah.
And it will.
Yeah.
I can't. It's a curse. I will never. His old leg's voice will be echoing throughout the halls of my mind for the rest of my days.
And it's great because I don't
because you don't remember anything.
I'm the guy that says them.
Yeah, I know.
And so I'm just like living this like blissful like
right.
I'm like a musical. I'm like Mamma Mia just in real life.
You're like the opening of La La Land. Another Day of Sun.
Yeah, I love it.
Bum, 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 bum. And I'm like the guy in the back honking his horn during that.
You're the guy trying to get to work.
Yep,
you're
that's
just
right.
You're like, I'm gonna get fired. They're never gonna believe this. So there's a
goddamn flash mob
on the fucking freeway now, and I gotta get to work.
I'm not fucking around with you, Jerry. There's a goddamn flash mob out here, and I can't get around it.
Yeah.
So I mean, that being said,
so it's a good segue into something I kind of wanted to talk about because I can't wait for, I don't know, maybe it's just never going to happen. To where this whole outrage culture, I feel like it's got to be like this. It's like the serpent that starts eating its tail. Yeah. Where eventually, like, outrage culture is going to be outraged at outrage culture.
Yeah.
And then maybe it'll just, like, spontaneously self-combust. But there's, like, I don't know. There's, like, 5 different things in this movie that if you just want to be mad about, you can. And I don't think it's any mistake that these things are in the film.
Right.
I don't think that it's a mistake that the dirty feet are front and center. Like, these aren't accidents.
No.
And I don't think it's like some weird, like, obviously, like it's like this kind of funny quirk that he has.
Yeah, but Tarantino doesn't do things
where he's like he has to. He's like writing his script around these feet scenes.
He is.
Which is like what some people will like lead you to believe.
Right.
Kind of thing.
Everything he does is deliberate. I think.
Yes, I mean, and Tarantino is very, very, very. If anything, he is completely self-aware.
He is
of what people are saying about him.
Yeah,
He
totally.
takes it very personally when people speak ill of his films. I assume he reads all of the reviews.
Yeah.
He reads everything about himself, and he gives really fucking candid interviews.
Yeah, he does.
Which is so I don't think that any of this is an accident. And the fact that it's just kind of like a throwaway line that Cliff Booth killed his wife,
yeah,
and that he's, once again, just smashing this intruder's head into the banister at the end.
Yep.
Leo torching the last hippie in the pool.
Yep.
I don't like. I don't understand what there is to be mad about. Like, are we past the point where we can have violence against women in films?
Because that's another,
really...
that kind of reminds me of like when Looney Tunes, when Warner Brothers released those 4, it was probably more than that, but that collection of Looney Tunes that were racist, that depicted, a lot of unflattering things and had like blackface in it and were very racist. And they put a disclaimer in front of it, and they said some of the things depicted in here are racist, but we didn't want to pretend that those things didn't exist would mean that we would forget that they happen and forget that that's a real thing and that we've moved on from then, and that's like a more powerful stance. So I'm not saying Tarantino's doing that like deliberately, but I mean to just shy away and not show like this ridiculous violence is like, well, that'd be like pretending that violence doesn't happen, I mean, I don't think he's promoting it, but it's absurd, the level of it is, and I think that's probably the point of it. So I mean, there's kind of a fine line there. Now, I'm not saying I want to see women get punched in the face or their faces slammed into stone. That's not something I go out of my way to enjoy. And I don't. But also to shy away from it and not to go to those deeper places, I think is also not beneficial for everybody too.
Yeah, it's really frustrating because I haven't really like had much time at all to like really digest this film in particular. Been on the road, and I'm literally just like just shots in the dark, like what I imagine people to be mad about. I'm sure, I don't know, like I would assume like critical reception is probably decent for this film.
Yeah, it's been very good. Yeah,
it's just like it's frustrating because I don't know where to draw the line, and I don't know where to be mad or upset. But just like thinking about it, I mean, the alternative for this story is to have Sharon Tate be stabbed in the stomach, multiple times and die a horrible, grisly death.
Yeah, right.
I guess that's the alternative. So that's what we don't see in this alternate timeline.
Right.
And to be upset about this other thing, like I don't know what to do. Like, like where do we like and like right what you said with like the Looney Tunes, like how like if you keep going backwards, like eventually, you're gonna get into really racist stuff. You know?
Yeah.
Everything is going to be upsetting to someone if you just go far back enough. So it's just like I don't understand how. I really wish the outrage culture would just kind of go away and we could just enjoy things for what they are, because it's just it's not a terribly serious film. Right. I think it's meant to entertain and to have fun.
Totally.
So
I totally
if it's
agree.
not your bag, then
whatever.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, I feel like you should know what you're signing up for at this point with Tarantino.
Right. And the people
there's going to be some edgy stuff.
The people that are going to be mad about it were going to be mad. They're already mad about it without seeing it. They were mad before they saw the movie. They were already mad. They already made up their mind. So they just wanted to see it just to scratch that itch, you know. I mean, there can't be anyone who's a huge Tarantino fan, who knows Tarantino movies, who loves Tarantino movies, who went to see this coming out of it being like, oh, I didn't care for that, or that wasn't very, you know, delicate, you know. I mean, you know who Tarantino is. Like, don't tell me that these soccer moms that are outraged, and I don't know if it's soccer moms, but that's just the image I get in my head about this. Like, either one, they didn't see the movie, or if they did, they already hated it and were already mad about it before they saw it. So why even see it? And, you know, like, there was kind of, you know, when Django came out in 2012, I remember, you know, people were, every time Tarantino has a movie come out, everybody's like, gets up in arms about something. And in 2012, it was, you know, that one was that the N-word was used a lot, and then also that there was a lot of gun violence, and they thought that maybe that was like promoting gun violence in America, which is just like, that's just such an old, stupid argument. And I remember, like, he made some comment about, like, it was some sort of offhanded comment, like he does about, you know, cops killing young black men, which, you know, that happens. And it happens in America, and it happens way too much. I mean, that's not a hot take, and I'm not calling out police officers. I'm just saying that's a shitty thing that happens that shouldn't happen as much as it does. You know, cops shouldn't be killing anybody, but I mean, especially at that rate, you know. But he had mentioned something about it. I don't even remember what the quote was, but I remember a bunch of people in the, you know, police officers and the community supporting police officers just started to boycott the movie or say they hated it, or like, oh, I went to see this just to sit back and relax and enjoy a movie from my favorite director, and then when I hear this, blah, blah. It's like, okay, all that stuff you said in the beginning wasn't true, and you were already mad about it, and it doesn't have any correlation with this actual film or what this story is about, you know. So I don't know where I was going with that, but I agree. Outrage culture is annoying, and then now, like, especially, like, I think that part of it was definitely fuel to the fire was not that, God, I don't want to get, you know, super political here, but I think that when the culture, when Obama was president, was a little bit more like, I think, like, a little bit more politically correct, and, you know, not necessarily politically correct, but just a little more delicate, a little bit more like, we don't want to offend, you know, and everything's nice. But then, you know, now with the current regime, it's a little different, and I think that people, and outrage culture is like, they're not getting outraged about things that they should be outraged at, or if they do, it's falling on deaf ears. So then I think outrage culture, what gives it its power is that it attacks things that can't fight back, right? Or that can't have any kind of argument. So it's like, the things you really should be upset about, people aren't getting upset about. They're getting upset about these little things that no one can really argue or defend. And it's just, man, I don't know what you did to me, old legs, but you made me go on some weird tangent down a weird road I did not want to go down.
No, I'll say, yeah, to kind of round that out, I don't want to sound, and I'll let you speak for yourself as well, but I don't want to sound like a total fanboy here and just, like, pretend that Tarantino doesn't, like, say dumb shit.
Yeah.
But again, like, he's very candid, and he'll just say whatever's on his mind. So, obviously, we don't need to agree with everything that a single person says.
No.
Again,
you guys think that I agree?
Political discord.
You're right.
Political discord is do we agree on, I don't know, like 60% of what our beliefs are? Like, sure, like, that's a pretty good foundation, I think.
Yep.
And then the rest can be left up for debate. That doesn't really happen these days, but
One of my
to say that he's completely without fault is also not what I'm
very
trying to
far
get at.
right,
I'm just
far
saying
from the
that
truth. Yeah,
I feel like the pitchforks are already out, no matter what happens, and I don't think that it's an accident that some of these things are in his films, because he's aware of everything going on around him, and I think he embraces some of these battles. Whether that's good or bad for him, I don't know, but I thought it was a fun movie, and I didn't have any problem with anything.
And one of my favorite parts about this podcast is that you and I don't agree all the time, and we think about things differently. And if we didn't, this would be a really boring show. It would just be, us just repeating stuff back to each other. And part of the dynamic is I try to make these good points. I'm swimming out there, and then you just got to come up with these fucking gators and just tear me down. It's all part of the show. I got to try and fight through it.
Definitely just part of the show, and it doesn't leak out into our personal lives at all, or our personal friendship.
Not at all.
Take you behind the curtain. I'm actually the biggest Marvel fan,
and I can't stand him.
I saw Spider-Man.
You don't have to do this, man. See, you can't even think of the names.
Long Way Home.
Far From Home, yeah.
Far From Home.
There you go.
Yeah. He was like, he had his Beats headphones on, and
Did it kill you to see Jake Gyllenhaal in that? Did that hurt you? I mean, I know you didn't see it, but just you knew he was in it, right?
So I can't even, so I guess he's in it.
You didn't even know. He's the big baddie.
Know that he was in it.
Oh, he sold out, man. He's the big baddie. He's Mysterio.
Was he?
He was great.
Did Mysterio button the top button on his shirt?
Yeah. He was great. He was really, really good, actually. But I know you'll never see it, so there's no point in anything I say after this.
Right.
So.
I don't watch Marvel movies because that's something that my character would not do.
That's right. That's absolutely right. Well, that's a good place to end it. That's any. So thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. You can find us on Facebook at L2 Podcast, on Twitter at L Squared Podcast. You can find me on Twitter at Luke Larson89. This podcast is on Instagram, L Squared Podcast on there. We're on SoundCloud. We're on YouTube. Check out our last episode about Crawl, aka Croc Seller. On there we talked about our Patreon as well. So we're actually, we've gotten a lot of good feedback from that. So we're gonna re-up those. We're gonna re-up those again this month. So the tiers are all the same. I think it was it 150,000 for the top a month?
Yes, I'm really excited.
Or 150 million. That's what. 150 million for the top one, and then it was it 100 million for the second, and then 85 for the third?
Yes, that top prize I will split my soul into 7 shards like fucking Voldemort.
Wow.
And I'll imbue a piece of my soul into an item of your choice, and I'll send it to you, and you can have it.
Wow.
All right, and
you can just do whatever you want with it, man.
Really
it's really up to you.
Stuff.
It is, and you can
to my magical journey. It takes a lot of crazy twists and turns.
I mean, you were gonna I mean, we had flirted with this. I suppose we can reveal it on the air, a little behind the curtains here too.
Here we go.
We were gonna do a tier for you to sell off pages of your journal of the spells that you've gone through, and just kind of your day to day, reading the sacred words, testing out this chaos magic, and just kind of
pandemonium.
So, I mean, we were going to... I know we had talked about it. I wasn't sure if you wanted to reveal that yet, but we were going to do possibly, tear out a page of your journal, and then...
Right. So the only problem with that is I would have to break the salt circle that I made around my apartment complex.
I see.
In order to deliver those letters to you. So
we're
gonna have to work on that.
Well, what if we did
I'm
like
gonna have to do some light reading on how to transpose those works through the magical barrier.
What if we did like
set up? But
I mean,
that's
I have an idea.
It's a good thought. It's a thought.
What if we did like a Facebook Live thing where we a private group, and then you could just kind of show them the pages of your journal live on Facebook.
I could email them.
Yeah. You want to just scan those in, and we can.
I don't think I can get you the physical copy because of
the salt. But that
email's good.
Email's
good for me, man.
That bypasses it real nice. The magic has no idea.
Yeah, Satan and
they're not really up to date.
All the kings of hell,
they're kind of living in the past.
Not terribly plugged in.
Yeah,
not terribly plugged in.
They kind of rested on their laurels. They're not really. They're kind of due for an upgrade, honestly. Somebody had to say it, but come on.
Yes. So, that's that. Come learn magic with me. It's exciting. I'll do a tarot card reading for you, and I'm sure you'll enjoy your money well spent. So, anything else here?
No, I think that's the best place to end it. Peace.
All right.